And let's bring in Congressman Michael Burgess. He is Republican from Texas, whose district is just outside Dallas. Dr. Burgess was a practicing OBGYN for nearly 3 decades and is vice chair of the House Health Subcommittee. Congressman, what a pleasure to see you. Thanks for being with me.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on, Jose.
Your district is not far from these Ebola cases in Dallas. What are you hearing from your constituents?
Of course, a great deal of concern. Presbyterian Hospital is important to me. I was on the courtesy staff there when I practiced in Louisville, just up the road. My son was born there. I mean, it is an important institution. Of course, all of us are just so struck by the young woman who was so selflessly provided care for the patient. But I got to tell you, you had, of course, just under 50 people that were already being monitored because of being personal contacts with Mr. Duncan, the first patient. Now you've probably got double that number of people who were involved in the care of the patient and the concern that they too could face some difficulties. So it's, I'll say one thing, the 2 or 3 weeks where this story has been top of everyone's mind, you learn a lot of humility in dealing with a virus like this.
No, and look, when we see this young lady, all reports are that she's so caring, that she really knew that she wanted to make a difference, and this is her way of serving the community. And I'm just wondering, what do you think happened? I mean, it's as though the hospital was quite aware that initially there was some stumbling going on as far as when the patient first came in, and then, they sent him home. What could have happened here?
Well, this goes back to the middle of the summer when I was talking with the CDC about this illness because I was concerned about the reports we were hearing out of Western Africa. The fact that fatality rates were 50–60% of the people that were infected, but what even struck me more is that 10 or 15% of those fatalities were healthcare workers and people who were on the front lines of taking care of people who were sick. Clearly, that's a vulnerability, except for the group known as Doctors Without Borders. And because they, what's been reported to me, they almost have a ritualistic, militaristic way in which they prepare and then de-gown or de-isolate themselves after taking care of a patient. And there was a lot to be learned there. Apparently, we're now having to relearn some of that stuff on the ground here in Dallas, so that's unfortunate. And I'll tell you something else, Jose, and I know I get some criticism for saying this. Look, if you're a researcher and you want to study Ebola, there's only 4 places in the United States you can go to actually work on the virus. There are 4 hospitals that are really set up in this country to deal with this level of isolation and this level of scrutiny. I'm not saying that every hospital shouldn't be prepared to diagnose, stabilize, and then prepare for transport those patients to those facilities that have already evidenced a special expertise in taking care of these patients.
And which are those 4?
Well, Emory, obviously, in Atlanta. The Omaha has a hospital. The National Institute of Health itself has its hospital research unit that's on the campus there. And then Montana also has a facility.
Right. And I want your thoughts on this issue because, we have thousands of troops heading over there, or many are already there to deal with this in Africa. Congress has authorized $750 million for the military's relief effort there in West Africa. What can be done to keep those troops safe who are going to go into the heart of the Ebola zone?
Well, in my understanding, Jose, and I'm not sure I'm completely up to date on this, is that they are there to provide the building of clinics. They're not there to provide the clinical care of patients. Now, if that has changed, then that's new information of which I'm not aware. So as far as the direct patient contact, for right now, my belief is that does not happen. But I'll tell you what, what's underpinning all of this is there is a vaccine that just entered clinical trials the 1st of September. Obviously, you pin a lot of hope on that. The vaccine showed a lot of promise in non-human primates. Apparently, there have not been any untoward reactions in the first 6 or 7 weeks of the phase 1 clinical trials. The quicker that can get out there to people on the front lines and provide protection, I think that's going to be an important step in this. And I know the people are being very, very careful. They want to be sure that the vaccine is safe and effective. I get all that, but this is no ordinary time. Business as usual is probably not the order of the day.
And Congressman, speaking of the military, I want to get your quick thoughts on the fight against ISIS. The president has a big meeting this afternoon with foreign defense chiefs. ISIS apparently keeps advancing despite U.S. airstrike. Is it time for a shift in strategy, you think?
You know, this is difficult because the ability to get timely updates in a classified setting was not great before we left, and it's been virtually impossible now. So I'm grateful that they're having the convocation there. I'm grateful that they're having the discussions. My understanding is, from listening to your reports leading into this, that this is not a decision-making session. And I don't know, maybe it's time for some decisions, but nevertheless, I'm glad they're involving themselves, and I'm glad they're talking about it. But it may be time for some decisions here as well.
Would you support U.S. further involvement in Iraq, maybe even in Syria?
Well, here's the difficulty. When I asked for information in a classified setting before we left at the end of September, before the vote was taken on whether or not to train members of the Free Syrian Army, I couldn't get it. It was not provided to me. Now, obviously, members of Congress are scattered to the four winds. It becomes even more difficult. I would like very much for someone to share with me some of the information that is available. I mean, that would be a pretty big decision. That would be a pretty big vote. And certainly people learned 10, 12 years ago, you need to have all of the information before you take that vote. But would I be willing to go back and vote on that? Yeah, absolutely. I think Congress should be. I think we should be there. This is one of the things we should be doing.
Congressman Michael Burgess, thank you so much for being with me. I appreciate your time this morning.
Yes, sir. Thank you.